This month's podcasts are sponsored by Aubergine Legal. Do you sometimes worry that your business isn't meeting all its legal compliance requirements and wonder if you're ticking all the legal boxes? Are you losing sleep worrying about a piece of legislation that you may or may not be complying with? Perhaps you need some help with your client contracts or your data protection compliance. Or maybe you're worried that your website doesn't have the right documents or legal notices in the right place. Perhaps you have a brand that you want to protect with a trademark. How about if you could outsource it all and eliminate all of your worries? If so, then get in touch with Aubergine Legal, a friendly commercial legal consultancy offering practical and clear commercial legal advice without the overwhelming legal jargon, taking the worry away and helping you to protect your business and minimise your risks. Aubergine offers a free 30-minute consultation if you have any questions or want to find out if they can help, and you can access this link and book your free 30-minute call via the link in the show notes.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Ideas to Life podcast. Practical advice and inspiration to help you create and sell your own physical products. Here's your host, Vicky Weinberg.
Anna Panteli is an Etsy handmade jewellery seller of 6 years and also a handmade business expert who creates downloadable resources for handmade businesses. So I invited Anna onto the podcast this week to talk specifically about Etsy. Anna is an Etsy expert. She knows so much about the platform. I know that many of you have handmade businesses or perhaps aspire to have a handmade business, and if Etsy is a marketplace that you're looking at, then I think this is definitely the episode for you. Anna has so much advice and knowledge and wisdom to share with us, and her focus is on getting people up and running on Etsy and selling really well. So I think you will really enjoy this episode and take a lot from it. So I'd love to introduce you to Anna. So hi Anna, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to meet you, Vicky.
You too. So can we start by you giving us an introduction to yourself, your business, and what it is that you do, please?
Yes. So my name's Anna. I am an Etsy handmade jewellery seller of 6 years. I'm currently pivoting my business into the sort of digital space. I've been what in inverted commas a handmade business expert for a few years now, and I actually thought that I was going to develop courses, but it's in the roundabout way. With 2020 things had to change, so I'm actually now creating downloadable resources for handmade sellers to basically help them to sell successfully online. So I'm a mummy of 2, so I'm having to do all those things whilst also homeschooling and being in the house all the time. So it's been a bit of a struggle, but cracking on, things hopefully returning to normal. But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. And yeah, there certainly is a lot going on at the moment, isn't there? So for context for people listening, because I don't know when you'll be listening to this, we are recording this in February 2021. I had to think about then, I didn't even know what day it was, but it's still February. So thank you so much for the introduction, Anna. So if you don't mind, maybe we can start at the beginning and talk about how and maybe why you got started on Etsy originally, and then we'll go from there, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's a bit of a winding story, as it usually is. I worked in sales and marketing in basically the corporate world since I was 18, really. And I have a condition called fibromyalgia. So I don't know if you know anything about that, but it's basically suffering with chronic pain. So having a 9-to-5, quite stressful, hectic job and fibromyalgia mixed together, they're not really compatible. And when I fell pregnant with my son, my first child, after having him, my pain got increasingly worse, and the stress of thinking of going back to work made everything a lot worse. So my sister and I, whilst I was on my maternity leave, kind of came up with this plan that, we'll start an online shop. And we did. It was called Shop at Ellie, Ellie being the last 3 letters of our surname. And we basically sold not handmade, but necklaces and scarves and handbags and things like that. And we did quite well. But it wasn't an income wasn't comparable income, basically. So when 2000, that was in 2014, when 2015 rolled around at the beginning of the year, whilst I was on the wholesaler's website making a new purchase order, I came across these gemstones, and I've always been a bit of a magpie, and I'm quite woo. I like my tarot, I like my crystals, things like that. So I saw these gemstones, and I thought, and they were drilled, they already had holes in, and I thought, I could probably make some necklaces out of those. This is somebody who's not really a creative person with their hands, because of having pain. That's never really been something. Everybody in my family is creative. I am the black sheep. I do not do anything crafty as a child, as a young adult. But I thought, okay, I'll maybe make some jewelry out of these gemstones. So I bought a load of crystals, and I learned from YouTube videos how to wire wrap and just basically basic necklaces. And on that process of and I put them on the website, but on the process of kind of coming across these gemstones, I don't really know how I came across Etsy, but I did. Etsy in 2015 is not well known. Now everybody knows about Etsy, but in 2015, nobody knew about Etsy. So I just happened across this website, and the fees were really low. And I thought, I might as well just put them on there, because obviously these are handmade pieces. So my sister at that point had also got another job. So we closed down the main site, and I decided to focus completely on Etsy, which is where Jewelry and Gems started. So this was now 2015. And it really took off. And it basically started to almost match my income that I'd had in the corporate world. So I quit that job. I never went back, and I've been selling on Etsy ever since then. But I now have 4 Etsy shops.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's grown a bit.
That's amazing. And how come you have 4 Etsy shops now? Do you sell 4 different product types?
Yeah. So started, as I say, Jewelry and Gems, which was gemstone jewelry in 2015. But then I came across these floating lockets at the beginning of 2016. And although I really liked the way that the lockets were, it was before Pandora. Pandora hadn't brought out a floating locket at that point. They did theirs in 2018, I think. But it was, the ability to kind of create this locket with charms inside. As I say, I'm a bit of a magpie, like collecting things. So all these little bits and pieces you could put inside lockets, it really fascinated me. But I wanted to kind of put my own spin on things, because I'm all about finding like your USP, what is your unique selling point? What is unique about your product compared to everybody else in the market? So I decided that I would make them really personalized, but the target customer of that shop is very different to the gemstone target customer. So to put them both on the same shop really didn't, for branding purposes, really didn't make very much sense, hence the second shop. And then in 2018, I decided to make a third jewelry shop aimed more at younger, sort of the younger age group, with quirky charms that had little quips written on them. I've actually temporarily closed that one at the moment because it's all just got a little bit too much. And then this year I've opened Anna's Planners, which is downloadable resources for handmade sellers, hence the 4th shop.
Yeah,
so,
and we'll talk about your planners a bit later, if that's okay, Anna, because I really do want to talk about those. And when you just mentioned then you've closed one of your shops, I'm not surprised. I mean, how are you keeping up with hand making all of these products?
So basically, when we first, or I say when I first started Jewelry and Gems, I was right, hang on a sec, let me just restart again. I've completely gone off topic.
No, don't worry.
As having my own podcast, I know that this happens. So, right, okay. Prior to 2019, my partner was a homemaker and I was breadwinner. So it was very easy to just kind of crack on and do what I needed to do, plan out. I'm very much an organised person. I like to have my day planned out. I like to know exactly what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. Then when my daughter started nursery in 2019, he then went and got a full-time job as well, because that was practical. And so having the children in school, and then having him being a very supportive partner, has meant that I've been able to grow my businesses. I think I've been very lucky in that sense. Maybe not in the start, because he actually lost his job in 2016 when I was starting my second shop. And that kind of forced me into being a breadwinner for, covering two incomes, which I wasn't expecting at that time. It was okay for me to just cover my income, but then I had to cover two incomes. So that was a whole different tangent that we had to go down. But I just have to be a very planned person and make sure that I'm organised at all points. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, that does. Thank you. And that wasn't something we said we were going to cover either. I just genuinely was fascinated when you said 4 shops, because I imagine one shop could easily be full-time in itself. So the fact you have 4, I think, is amazing. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Etsy, if you don't mind, before we moved on. So obviously you've been selling on there for a while. And as you say, when you started, it was quite unknown. It was really niche, actually, wasn't it? I remember when Etsy was seen as quite a small, really niche platform, and there wasn't that much on there, but now there are so many sellers. So what have you learned during that time, do you think?
Things change all the time, and you have to keep learning and evolving. There's no point in thinking that how it is how it's always going to be, because it's not. I mean, there's been so many changes, drastic changes that's been brought out, things like the free shipping element, which if you don't provide free shipping, then you'll be lower down in the search results. So then you have to change your pricings and your costings, and that's an upheaval to everybody's shops. And they changed the way that the search placement worked. So being on top of changes and being okay with a change, because I remember the first time something changed with search, it was really frightening, because especially when you're breadwinner in the house, that's basically potential loss of business. But just not being frightened, and just being understanding that this is how it is, and having other things in place, whether that's marketing. I think marketing is really important. I think that solely relying on your search engine optimization, your tags and titles on your Etsy shops, is something that back in the days you could probably just rely on. But because things change all the time, you need to have your own space on the internet, whether it is social media or whether it's email marketing or a podcast or whatever it is that you're doing. You need to have a place where you're connecting with your target customer, so that if something does change temporarily, you're still engaging with that customer of yours, and you can still bring that person in without having to rely continuously on SEO. So yeah, I think that's something I've learned. Keep your eye on the ball and have somewhere else where you can bring people in from.
That's really good advice. Thank you. And out of interest, are Etsy good at telling you when things change, or do they just happen? I'm just curious, because I don't sell there, so I've got no idea.
No, they won't usually. There's been 3 phases. Things have just been a complete shock. Then there was the second phase where they told you they were doing testing, and there was an actual testing site where you could go and you could see all the different things they were running. But then I think what happened with that was, because people could go and check what was being tested, it meant that it was skewing their results, because people were aware of things that were going on. So they were changing things within their shops to coincide with the testing. So then they took that away. So now they will tell you that something has changed. They won't tell you that they're going to do it, but they will tell you after they've done it that something has changed. Although saying that, I read yesterday that apparently the placement search has now changed for the way in which, let's say you type in lion poster, for example. It used to be you would just find lion posters on that page. Now you might see a cougar poster or something else that's relevant. So that actually changes things up quite a bit, because it means you can be pulled up for searches that you're not even targeting for. They haven't told us about that, but that's just something that's been noticed. So yeah, No, not really. And yes, also. It depends.
It's really interesting you say that, though, just from a customer, as a customer, because I was shopping on Etsy earlier this week. And funnily enough, I typed in a few things and the first couple of results made total sense. And then I was getting results that weren't quite as relevant. And I've never had that on Etsy before. Usually on Etsy, because you're usually looking for something quite specific, I find that the search results are pages and pages of what you're looking for. But for the first time, that happened to me this week, where I was thinking, oh, this isn't quite what I wanted. So that's really interesting. That's possibly a change that they've made. But anyway, that's off the topic, isn't it?
Well, at least you've witnessed it. So you've witnessed it then, yeah.
So how and when, Anna, did you start to transition to helping other people sell on Etsy as well as managing your own stores?
So around 2018, I kind of came up with this thing that maybe I might want to have a course. Maybe I might want to have a membership program. And it's because I was speaking to people and people were asking me quite a lot, how are you kind of doing this? How have you got so many sales? I've never really had a very big social media presence. So it was all my search and my branding and things like that. Now I'm building my social media presence more. But so people wanted to kind of know, and I could see as well that people were asking questions in forums, on the Etsy forums, on other people's pages. So there was a gap where people weren't really getting the answers from somebody who didn't work, on Shopify or on Etsy or on another selling platform. Somebody who's actually in the trenches, who was selling successfully enough to be the breadwinner in the house. So was in the inside and understood, but also, being a mother and having a chronic pain issue. So understanding what it's like in day-to-day life, I felt that there was a huge gap in the market for somebody who could be a handmade business expert that was doing the thing every single day. So yeah, in 2018, I was kind of permeating that plan. Then 2019, I started to actually write my course outline, all the things that I wanted to discuss. It was going to be, quite a long course. And then towards the end of 2019, I was pretty much kind of finished, and it was all going to come out in 2020. However, then 2020 happened, and I had to reevaluate how I wanted to deliver this course that I'd created, because realistically speaking, I no longer had as much time as I had done before because the children were at home. My partner lost his job again. He was made redundant. So everything again fell back onto me. So I had to reevaluate how I was going to present this course. And what I did was I just basically divided up all the course modules into what I call planners and trackers and blueprints. And it's just another way to deliver the same content, the same materials that I would have done in a 12-week course, but now in individual planners. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Oh, so that's how your planners came about as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's kind of the avenue that I'm going down now is just the planners. I'm not thinking about a course anymore. That's not on the horizon. Everything happens for a reason. That's what I believe. And this is how it was meant to be.
So are your planners designed for new sellers or for existing Etsy sellers who want to make changes, or both? Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
I think that the planners can be used for anybody that is either, I would say anybody who is who's wanting to get organised, who's wanting to have systems and processes for every aspect of their business, and who's wanting to kind of cut through jargon, because I include what I call blueprints in every single one of my planners, so that it explains to you how to use this planner properly, but cuts through jargon information that you would read. And as just an everyday person, you're not going to know what some of the terms mean. Like, not everybody knows what SEO is, or what the differences between the different profit levels are, and all those kinds of things. I wanted to explain them just like I would have done in the course, So you get a blueprint with the planner so that you can expand your knowledge whilst also getting organised and planning out every aspect and every element of your business, whether that's product creation, financial tracking, social media, especially Pinterest and Instagram, because I think they're very important, email marketing, branding, etc. So, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic. And how many, so you have a couple of different planners, don't you, at the moment?
Yeah. So I say that there's 10 business bricks. And in order to be sort of fully functioning and fully successful, you need to be have a good level of understanding of each one of those business bricks. So I plan to bring out a planner and blueprint for each one of those bricks. So far, I've made 6, and you can buy the 6 individually, or you can buy them in what I call the Handmade Business Bundle. So we look at things like goal planning, as I say, product pricing, inventory, finances, branding, email marketing. And then also, because I think that wellness is really important, there's also a wellness planner as well, because I think that it's really important to manage what you are doing with your body and what you're doing with your mind, and kind of pushing you towards what a dream day would be like, and planning out how you feel every day, and, you know, noting that down and reviewing your month and what can you do next month to maybe improve that. And so, yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. And are your planners, are you selling them as like a physical printed item, or as a download, or as both?
They're all digital downloads at the moment. I don't really want to make them into physical products, for the simple fact that each planner page is something that you would reuse again. So I want you to have the ability to reprint it. So, you know, for things such as product development, where, you know, you'd answer certain questions about, and I know you find product validation as being very important. So, you know, how you're designing your product, who's it for, how are you going to validate it? Those kinds of things, you need to be able to reuse them for every time you make a new product. Hence the downloadable aspect and reprintable aspect of them.
Yeah, that's really nice, because I guess that every time you create a new product or you go to do something else in your business, you can just go through this process again and again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a very nice way of doing it. So do you plan to deliver any sort of other services, or do you intend to do all of your teaching, as it were, through your planners?
Well, a few ways. Me and my co-host, Lindsay Warren, we have a podcast called the Handmade Business Podcast, and we talk about many of the different things that I would talk about in the 10 business bricks. So that's kind of one avenue that I am growing on the information that you can get from the planners. I am really all about free content. So my Instagram has always got loads of different business tip posts, and I don't just want them to be airy fairy. I want them to be full of content, like real strong checklists that you can literally look at that post, save that post, and use it for an element or aspect of your business. So that as well. But I think at some point, once things start to get a little bit more normal, I will be able to offer more of a membership program. So where I will grow on the information that you can, so you know, buy the planners in advance and then come to like an online teaching group with other people, and we can all discuss the topics and, you know, grow our information more via that kind of a membership. But that's something that I can't really do right now. So I've not fully got that out. It's just something that's coming soon at some point.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. And I'm with you as well, that it's nice to be able to offer as much free content as you can in the meantime, because I'm the same. I have plenty of plans for further down the line, but right now, quite happy to just provide good content and yeah, and then, you know, do what you do other things when there's the time, because that is obviously such a big issue now. I'm glad you mentioned the Handmade Business podcast as well, because I was going to come on to talk about that, and I will link to that in the show notes, because I think anyone listening who has a handmade business, that would be a great podcast to listen to. So let's talk a bit more about Etsy, if that's okay, because you are such an expert that I need to sort of get as much from you as I can, if that's all right. So What are some of your tips for getting off to a good start on Etsy? So if someone's thinking about sort of getting their products on there soon, or maybe they've literally just started, what are some of the things that you need to get right straight away?
Firstly, I think it's really important that you understand who you're selling to. And this applies to anywhere, not just Etsy. Anywhere you're selling, you need to understand who your customer is, because once you understand who that is, you can then start doing everything else afterwards. That's basically the foundation. So know your customer, basically. Then I think it's really important, once you've got that information, that you do some real hard work when it comes to search engine optimization. So that's your tags, your titles, your listings, how you describe your product within the listing description, because that's how you would get your organic traffic, just people searching on the app. Like you said, you're looking for something specific on Etsy. That's how you get pulled up in search results, by having excellent SEO. It's a bit of a learning curve, that one. It's not just something that you're just going to type in a nice title and that'll be it. You have to keep changing it. But there's so many great search engine tools out there, which I certainly did not have at the beginning of my journey. But there's so many tools. I've come across recently a tool called Answer the Public. It's amazing. I could spend all day on that platform. It just gives you so many different search terms and other content ideas. So there's lots of things that you need to do with SEO, but there's loads of places you can go and get help. So that's very important. I also think, and Lindsay and I talk about this on the podcast quite a lot, is photographs. Photographs are so essential. A blurry photograph, an unclear photograph, no, we can't have any of that when you're selling online, because that is the window into your product. When you're buying online, you're not feeling it, you're not picking it up, you're not understanding what it is, in your hand. So the photographs have to do that. You have to represent exactly what it is. So learning how to use, and you don't need to have a Canon camera or some Nikon camera. You can if you want, but don't feel that you need to. Your iPhone, your Android will take perfectly good pictures. Don't need to edit them, just take them natural. You don't need to have some fancy backgrounds. I've lasted with card and paper and a bit of material all this time. I've never invested in massive amounts of props or anything like that. But it's essential that you have excellent photographs. And then I would also say that, connecting to social media, like I said before, I think it's really important that you have a social media connected to your account, because I know myself, if I find a shop that I really connect with, I want to go and find their Instagram account. So by having those accounts linked on your Etsy, and you'd be surprised how many people forget to do that. By having those, that's a place that you can keep talking and engaging with that customer. And if they don't buy at that point, they just favorite your shop, you can talk to them outside of their shopping experience and build that, know, like, and trust factor, and, things like that. And then if they do buy, you can keep talking to them and keep engaging with them and have a returning customer, or, build the word of mouth aspect. So those are kind of the tips that I would say when it comes to Etsy.
Thank you. That's really useful. And coming back to Instagram, I'm just curious, does it work the other way, that Instagram links to your shop? So can you do shoppable Instagram with Etsy?
You can't do shoppable Instagram with Etsy. It's Facebook. If you have a shop on Instagram, it links to your Facebook, and you can't do one without the other. But you have link. Have you heard of Linktree? So yes. In your bio, yeah. So you can have a Linktree that goes straight to your Etsy account, and those things, those links, backlinks, are really good for Google. Basically, Google thinks, oh, this shop or this company is really together because they've got a link going that way and a link going this way, and they're connected to this blog post, and oh, this person wrote about them, and that comes back. That kind of World Wide Web, that's what it is. It's a spider web. So having all those links connected to one another, it shows that you are a genuine business, that you are talking about in between all your different platforms, but other people are talking about you as well. So the more links, the better to build that web.
Oh, that's good. That makes sense. Thank you. And do you recommend people have their own website as well as their own Etsy store, or do you not think that matters? The reason I ask that is because I sell on Amazon, and I often tell Amazon sellers to make sure they have their own site, because Amazon's a platform that can be a bit tricky, let's say, you can get thrown off, you can get your listings taken down. Is it the same with Etsy, or is it not as important?
Well, you can definitely get thrown off and you can definitely get shut down on Etsy. But if you follow the rules, that's unlikely to happen, like, copyright and things like that, or, not playing outside of the rules. Personally, I've never had, apart from, when I first started and I had the original standalone website, I've never had my own website since then. To be honest, it's a lot of hard work maintaining your own website. And Etsy, personally, is so, nowadays especially, is so customizable, and it's got so much, so many feet, basically, so many eyes coming to the platform every single day, that I don't necessarily think it's important that you have it. But if you have previous experience of having your own website, then go ahead, absolutely. The more space you've got, you're taking up on the internet, the better. And a company I follow, and I've followed her for such a long time now. She's called Katie, but her business is called Dear Mushka. She has an Etsy shop, but actually she's leveraged her social media to the point now that she doesn't actually drive her traffic. If you go into her link tree, she doesn't drive her traffic to Etsy. She drives it all to her own website. So if you can actually build up such a following on Instagram or, Facebook or even Pinterest, that, you're sending so much traffic, to save on transaction and processing fees, you might as well have your own website, or have both together, because there's no point giving away more of your profit to Etsy if actually you're doing all the hard work yourself. So if that's the case, then yeah, go ahead and just have a website, or have an Etsy and a website. Yeah, definitely. But for me personally, because up until recently I've not had the social media presence, I've relied completely on my own organic traffic, basically. Apart from Pinterest, I have quite an active Pinterest, but it's not the same talking platform, is it? Like Instagram and platform, where you're connecting on the same kind of basis. But yeah, so I think it's kind of dependent on your own circumstance, really.
Okay, that's really interesting. Thank you. And I know, as I say, my reason for asking it is because I always recommend it for Amazon sellers, but I think Amazon and Etsy are quite different marketplaces. So I was just interested in your take. So thank you for that. So it sounds like if you want to, you can, but it's not necessarily essential. I guess it kind of depends on what your long-term or maybe short-term plan is for your business, and how and where you want to grow it, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, because it is a massive learning curve having your own website.
Yeah.
It's quite it's quite a tricky thing to do if you've never had any experience doing it. So don't give yourself more pressure. Learn how to do one thing before you start picking up something else, is what I would always say.
Absolutely. And I also think SEO can be even harder on your own website, and certainly different from whatever marketplace you're selling on as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Because Etsy, the customer's already there, aren't they? So they're already on the site. They've just got to find your stuff, whereas to actually find your website is a whole other thing. One final question on the topic, if you don't mind, is do you think it's possible to do well on Etsy without having any social media, just having an Etsy store as you did when you first started?
I think, see, that's a tricky one, because obviously I'm somebody who doesn't have a social media presence, and obviously I've done quite all right. So I could say, yeah, it's definitely possible. And I think it probably is definitely possible if you have got your SEO on point. If you've got that on point, then yeah, definitely. If you're always the first thing that's being pulled up in search for that particular product, and your photography is great, so everybody's clicking on you, and then your listings really sell your item, then if you've got that process all the way through and you've got it down, yeah, definitely it's possible to not have social media, because all your traffic's coming directly from the app. But because things change, and like we've just talked now, before, about how, related searches, and that's kind of changing things, I think it's really important to have your own presence somewhere else, because relying on one thing or relying on any marketplace, you are essentially relying on another company. And I think it's probably best nowadays that you rely on yourself. So yes, you should have all those things, as I said, on Etsy, you know, your SEO, your photographs, your listings, your pricing, whatever it is, you have to have all those things. But yeah, I would say social media and email marketing, because email marketing even more so than social media, because social media again is dependent on an algorithm that's constantly changing, and you don't know when Instagram is going to change the way that they show your posts. So Reels has just changed again compared to how it was when it was all brought out and people were really relying on Reels. So email marketing is a way to, as long as you reach inbox and you don't go to spam, but reaching people's inboxes and really connecting with that customer, it's a lot more personal. If you can write a really great newsletter, I think that's another way. And that's something that the company Dear Mushka that I mentioned, she has a great email every Thursday. And you know what to expect from her. She doesn't just talk about her products. She knows who she's selling to. She talks about related things that she knows you're going to be interested in. And she brings you back all the time. So she leverages both her email and her social media to make sure she's always in your head, basically. So if you can do that, you've got a customer for life. That's not an overnight thing. Do not expect to just wake up tomorrow and that's just going to happen, because it's not. But it's definitely doable if you know your person. So yeah, that was a long answer to a very simple question.
No, but it's a really good answer. Thank you. And I think I like the fact that you brought it back again to really knowing your customer as well, because that, of course, is so important. And yeah, I think it makes such a difference when you know who it is you're targeting. So when you spoke earlier about you opened a second shop because you wanted to target a different customer and you knew that the customers buying your gemstones wouldn't be interested in your other products, it was just, yeah, it struck me that it's great that you knew that, because some people probably would have added these additional products to their existing store, and then that might have made it a bit confused because people might have been, well, is it this or is it that? So the fact you knew your customers so well, I think was really helpful. And of course, it means you have these two stores to manage. But I imagine that it makes it easier in some ways because you're targeting different people with each one of them.
Exactly, yeah. And all the photographs and the way in which I speak in the listings, it's still me, but I'm just speaking a little bit differently on each shop. So yeah, knowing your target customer is essential. But I do see exactly what you just said, where somebody will have an idea and they'll just put it into the shop, and it might be a really great idea, but it doesn't fit in with what they're already doing. So I think I've been asked that question quite a lot by sellers. Should I have another shop? If this product doesn't match that customer, yeah, you should. You should. Does it mean it's going to be hard work? Possibly, but in the same sense, you're going to have the same listings quantity on a new shop. It'll just be your branding that might change, but everything else, the process is just the same. You just rinse and repeat for every shop, just talking differently.
And on Etsy, how does it work? Do you pay for every shop that you have, or do you pay a commission, sort of a flat commission on each sale? How does that work? So financially, is there any downside to opening two shops, I guess is what I'm asking.
No, there isn't, because you just pay per listing. So there's no fee for opening the shop. Opening the shop is free. It's 20p per listing listed, and then every time somebody purchases it, it's 20p again. You also have a transaction fee and a processing fee, which is basically the Etsy transaction fee that they take off you, and the processing is like PayPal or whichever company's been used to make the transaction. Obviously, things like VAT, which when I started, there wasn't the same VAT thresholds as there is now. Now you have to pay 20% VAT on every fee. That bumps it up every time. Obviously, you can be VAT registered, but then that has its downsides as well. So that's something to think about. So with the transaction and processing fees, that's something that you definitely have to pay on every sale. They're quite minimal fees. It's only in total they take around 15%. That's including VAT. That's a lot more than it was when I started, but it's kind of gone up gradually. But now there's things like ads. We didn't have ads at the start in the same way. It was just kind of cost per click. Now we have two different types of ads. So there's Etsy ads, where they'll advertise you at the top of the page and all that. And then there's offsite ads, which is where they'll advertise you on Facebook or Pinterest or Google or places like that. When that used to actually be free, that used to be standard. Now you have to pay for it, or you don't get a choice. So if you're a seller like myself and you've made over a certain amount the previous year, you don't actually get to opt out of adverts. You have to be in the advert scheme, or you can leave Etsy. That's what somebody said to me. It's like, well, if you're not happy with it, you can just leave Etsy. I was like, oh, goodness me, such a harsh way to put it. But so they will take around, it's about a quarter of your profit or of your overall sale. And that's quite a hard pill to swallow. However, what I've kind of had to get my head around is it's bringing more eyes to my shop. I wouldn't have had that sale had that advert click not come in. I've made the sale. I've potentially got a returning customer who's potentially going to tell somebody else, who's going to bring me 10 more customers. So I've had to kind of change my mindset around the adverts. But if you're just starting, you don't get put into the adverts. Actually, I tell a lie, you do. You have to opt out again, but you'll have the ability to opt out of adverts, or once you get past the threshold, you won't. So
that's interesting. And with these, and I don't want to go into too much detail, I'm aware of your time, but I'm just curious, are these off Etsy adverts, how comparable are they to if you ran your own Facebook ad, for example, in terms of return?
Well, as I was just going to say, as somebody who hasn't run so many Facebook ads, not with this current business, with my original business, I did more Facebook ads. I haven't done it at all, really. So I couldn't really give you an actual statistic, but I would say that because it's Etsy running the ad, you will get prioritized more than I think if you're just a shop on Facebook. You'll get more priority, I would say. And it does open, I have, especially over Christmas, that's when you could really see, because this change is very recent, so you could really see over Christmas that a lot of customers were coming through those channels such as Facebook, which I didn't have before because I don't really have a presence on Facebook. So there is benefits, but I can't really compare it to a organic.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I was just really interested because I was wondering if, because obviously someone at Etsy is presumably managing these ads, whether, for example, I haven't got any experience in social media ads. If I ran my own, it would all just be trialing an error. And I was just wondering if, because Etsy are running them, possibly, they get the targeting a bit better, and it's just
I would think so, because they've got a whole host of data that you wouldn't have as a just an average Joe Blogs. You wouldn't have that data. And I think that's actually why they've made the decision to change the search recently, with putting, like we were saying about lion posters and cougar posters all being in the same. I think they've made that change because of the information they've learned through offsite ads, because they've had access to different communities of people, and so their search has grown, their understanding of search has grown.
Oh, that's all really interesting. Okay, so just a few final questions before we finish, Anna. Could you please tell me, what would your number one piece of advice be for other Etsy sellers?
It's going to be an interesting answer, this one, because I'm not actually going to say anything about Etsy itself, because I think the one thing that has helped me throughout this entire journey is getting on top of my mindset, because it's all well and good giving me a list of things that I need to do. If I don't truly believe in myself, if I'm not, in the right, it doesn't matter whether or not you give me all the information in the world. I'm not going to be able to go and do it because I'm thinking I'm going to fail, or I'm thinking somebody else is already doing it better than I am. Why should I even bother? So I think actually working on that is really essential, because if you can truly believe that you can do it, then you will do it. I'm very much into the law of attraction, and I think that, you know, when you put things out there and you put action out there, that things will come back to you. It doesn't mean it's not going to take hard work. Law of attraction isn't about sitting on the couch and it's all just going to appear in front of you. Not at all. But just having that belief, you will start to receive the things that you've asked for, essentially. So I think working on your mindset, and I think the way in which you can do that is by surrounding yourself with other people who are in a similar boat to you. So whether that's, you know, starting off with podcasts that are talking about, you know, the topics that you're interested in, or mindset in and of itself, reading self-help books, having an accountability partner as well, I think is really important. Somebody who's also just starting, or maybe even a few steps ahead of you, so that you can both, you know, set a time every week or every couple of weeks to, you know, come back and go, so you said you were going to do this. How are you getting on with that? You know, having that accountability really pushes you and spurs you on. And another way, if you can't get hold of an accountability partner, which, by the way, you know, there's loads of people out there in groups, in forums, that are desperate to meet somebody who's going to be their business bestie kind of thing. If you can't get hold of an accountability partner that's suitable, I think having a business coach is really important. My educational background is in psychology. So, you know, I really think that everything starts with the mind, and having somebody who's trained to help you with your mindset can actually really boost your confidence. And, you know, again, provide that accountability where, you know, you're going to speak to that person. And if they've given you, quote, homework to do, you want to do it, because when you go, you don't want to disappoint them. You're not in a negative way, in a good way. So yeah, working on your mindset, and those are kind of the ways I would say you can get to that. And once you have worked on that, once you feel, you know, once you believe in yourself, you can do anything. And that's not just with business, that's with life in general. You know, you can do anything once you believe in yourself. So yeah, that would be my tip.
Thank you so much, Anna. That's such a nice positive note to end on as well. I really like that. So one final thing is, where can people go if they want to find out more about you, your planners, look at your products? Where's the best place to start?
So I would say go to Instagram or Etsy, both under the same name, Anna's Planners. No underscores, no hyphens, nothing, just straight Anna's Planners. And, you know, as I say, I'm constantly updating the Etsy shop, my Anna's Planners Etsy shop, with new business brick planners. There's 6 available at the moment. So yeah, go and check those out. There's actually an offer on at the moment, an introductory offer on the Handmade business bundle. So I would definitely get hold of that. My Instagram account has always got, as I say, I'm very much into free content. So it's not just about, you know, what you can go and purchase from me. It's definitely what you can go and just find free content on the Instagram page, checklists, all sorts of different posts that I put out there. And then also come over to the Handmade Business podcast with my co-host Lindsay Warren and I. We put out an episode every 2 weeks. We talk about various different topics of handmade business, but we also interview handmade sellers who are really just starting out on their journey, or slightly into their journey, but, you know, business babies, we would say. So yeah, those are the places to come and find me.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I will link to everything that we've spoken about in the show notes as well, so people can find those really easily. So thank you so much for coming on and for everything you've shared today.
Thank you very much for having me, Vicky.
You're welcome. Hi, thank you so much for listening. As always, I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this episode. Please do remember to rate and review the show, and also, most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And as a reminder, I release a new episode every single Friday. So take care and look forward to speaking to you again then. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago, because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features, like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.